handle. Most obviously Sergei's daughter Yulia, who they knew was staying at the house at the time, but also any neighbour, visitor, delivery person, or anybody else who might chance by. Fourth, I'm satisfied that Petrov and Bosharov brought with them to Salisbury the Nina Ricci bottle containing Novichok, made in Russia, that was subsequently responsible for Dawn Sturgess's death. It was probably this bottle that they used to apply the poison to Sergei Skripal's door handle. Then, before leaving Salisbury, they recklessly discarded this bottle in some public or semi-public place. They can simply have had no regard at all to the hazard thus created, hazard of death or serious injury to an uncountable number of unconnected and innocent people. Fifth and finally, Petrov, Bosharov and Fedotov were, as I've said, members of an operational team within the GRU. I am sure that in conducting this attack on Sergei Skripal, they must have been acting on instructions received from their superiors. And I've concluded that the operation to assassinate Sergei Skripal must have been authorized at the highest level, indeed by President Putin. Moving on, I'm sure that Charlie Rowley, Dawn's partner, later came into possession of the discarded bottle of Novichok. Probably he found it somewhere. It's impossible to say exactly where and when he acquired it, but it is likely that it was within a few days of the bottle being abandoned on the 4th of March 2018. He, of course, had no idea that its contents were toxic. Whenever and wherever he acquired it, I'm sure that the perfume bottle containing Novichok that Charlie Rowley gave to Dawn Sturgess on the morning of the 30th of June 2018 with fatal consequences had been brought to Salisbury and then discarded there by Petrov and Bosharov on the 4th of March. I've considered whether Dawn Sturgess's death might have been either caused by or contributed to by conduct or failings on the part of the British authorities. The contention has been advanced on behalf of Russia that the Novichok might have emanated from the British and have been used in a deliberate attempt falsely to pin responsibility on Russia. That contention I've examined thoroughly, and the reasoning is set out in the report. But it's a contention that cannot stand up for reasons which are explained in detail in that report. There is overwhelming evidence to support my findings that the Novichok was brought to Salisbury by Russian GRU officers for the purpose of the attack on Sergei Skripal, and then discarded there, later causing the death of Dawn Sturgess. Next, questions were very properly raised on behalf of Dawn Sturgess's family as to whether the British authorities ought to have done more to protect Sergei Skripal. I've considered this issue with particular care. I have concluded that there were some failings in Sergei Skripal's management as an exchanged prisoner. In particular, sufficient regular written risk assessments were not carried out. But I am persuaded that these failings did not have any causative effect. The assessment was made that there was not a sufficient risk of an attempt at assassination on British soil by Russian agents, and that was not unreasonable in the circumstances of the time. We're talking about 2010 to 2018. Circumstances, geopolitical circumstances, were a little different from now. Some of the suggested precautions would not have prevented the kind of professional attack which was launched in any event. The arrangements which were made for Sergei Skripal took account of his own wishes, but were not dictated by them. It cannot be said that the British authorities ought to have adopted much more extreme security measures for him in effect, such as to isolate or hide him completely. I've also separately considered whether public health advice ought to have been issued sometime in the period between the Salisbury incident in March and the Amesbury incident in June, to the effect that members of the public shouldn't pick up anything that they hadn't themselves dropped. I've concluded that a decision was taken not to issue such advice at that time, largely because of the danger of causing widespread public fear and panic over a then undefinable area. And that decision was a reasonable one at the time that it was made. So, in summary, the conclusion of the report is that Dawn Sturgess died an innocent victim of an attempt by officers of a Russian state organization to conduct an assassination on the streets of Salisbury using a highly toxic nerve agent. The conduct of Petrov and Bolsharov and their GRU superiors and those who authorized the mission, up to and including, as I found, President Putin, that conduct was astonishingly reckless. There is a direct causal link between the actions of all those individuals and Dawn Sturgess's death. And they, and only they, bear moral responsibility for it. I should say that I've been extremely grateful to those who gave evidence, to counsel and solicitors on all sides for their marshalling of the evidence and their very helpful submissions as to the right approach to it, and to the many people who made the vital administrative arrangements to enable the inquiry to function at all. Thank you very much.